Hello everyone, welcome back to Slits Car Care. This week we have this BMW Z4 in for a mammoth restoration project. It's not necessarily receiving the most in-depth paintwork detail, but it is going to be a huge turnaround with all the tasks that we've got on this car. So the first thing I've got to say is please excuse the state of this floor. We've been doing a bit of painting and obviously a bit of overspray has occurred from the previous job, but we're mid-process of cleaning that up. But it's not going to be a 2-minute job, so we're going to get started on this anyway. And because we've got a bit of painting to do on this, we're going to wait to go to town on the floor until this is done. So the first job that we've got is tidying up these brake hubs and calipers. These are going to be going matte silver for that clean OEM look, and to make sure that it looks clean but unmodified, basically, is what the customer's aim was. We're going to be making sure we give up the wheel arches a proper good clean out, which we've already done outside to a certain degree, but we're going to get the steamer on it again and make sure they're looking the best they possibly can. The roof we have already cleaned, but will be being dyed, so that's going to be going black again, obviously, but just to add depth to the colour, and then we're going to be protecting that also. We're having new badges fitted all around, so that's front and back. And the wheels also are off for refurb, and they will be having new centre caps, so when they come back, they will be looking fresh also. The headlights are going to be restored, because as you can see at the moment, they're looking a bit cloudy and a bit yellow. And then finally, the normal sort of stuff. So we've got a nice interior clean to do, an engine bay deep clean, and also a single stage machine polish with 2 coats of ceramic coating. So that'll be 1 layer of Ceramic Pro 9H and 1 layer of top coat. And then all the other little details, so the faded plastics on the wing mirrors, the scuttle, all these sorts of things are going to be sorted out. So once this car is complete, it is going to be looking much sharper than what it does at the moment. Obviously the prep work is already done, so it's inside on axle stands, the wheels are already off, so you're joining us kind of a day into the process really, but let's take it away from here and get started on these rusty, horrible looking brakes. So the first step that we've got to take to getting a good finish on these calipers is making sure there's no loose dirt or debris on the surface. So we just attack it with a wire brush, making sure that we get every single surface that we can. And after a good rub over, we can start looking at dismantling them. So we do that with 2 7mm Allen heads on the back. And then once those are out, all we've got to do is release the brake pad retaining clip on the front, and the caliper should slide right off. It's important to put this somewhere where it's not going to stretch the brake line, so we'll just pop it on top of the disc for now and put it on some blocks later. Now onto the carrier. This was a bit tight, so we had to use a breaker bar just to break off the bolts on the back. But then once that's off, it was just a case of winding out the bolts and the carrier was free. And then just to repeat exactly the same process on the back. So now that we've got the discs off, we mask them off and we can start priming. We'll be using an etch primer on this. It seems to be the best thing to get a good bond between the paint and the bare metal. So I've got the discs primed, the calipers primed, and the carriers. Now I'm just going to wait for this to dry. All it took was a couple of coats of primer for a nice even finish. Now that's dry, we can look at applying our VHT silver. So that's very high temperature paint, it's rated up to 800 degrees, so it'll be more than capable of whatever the brakes have got to give it. It's also got great coverage and gives a really nice, clean, bare metal look. So that's the carriers done. Let's move on to the discs. And with the discs, we're not too worried about getting a little bit on the face of the disc. As soon as the brakes are refitted and the car's driven down the road, it'll really clean up that edge. And the final part is painting the caliper. And the final one looking lovely. So now that the brakes are all painted, let's move on to the soft top. It's already cleaned outside, so all we've got to do now is dye it. It's completely dry, so we've masked off the rest of the car to make sure we don't get any spillages on the paintwork. And we'll be using the Furniture Clinic dye set for this, so we use 2 parts colour, 1 part penetrating solution, which is basically just an alcohol which helps the dye penetrate into the material and get better coverage as well. So mix those together and just apply them straight to the roof with a microfiber cloth. Two coats of this dye really transforms the look of a roof and really makes it look brand new, so it's definitely worth doing if your roof's a little bit faded. Loads better. So now that the dye's on, we can start looking at applying some waterproofer. So make sure it's completely dry before doing this, but you simply just brush on 2 coats and that will leave your roof sealed, meaning that the colour stays in better, and also as well it will stay cleaner for longer and be easier to maintain also. So that's that finished, and we can move on to the claying. So for this we use Built Hamber soft clay and just water as a lubricant, spray it liberally over the panel and just rub the clay over the surface. Joe's going to show us now what just doing that small section pulled off the paintwork. Filthy. Nice work, Joe. So now we repeat this process over the entire car, and then the paintwork is ready for polishing. Even doing the glass as well, you can still get overspray and other contaminants on the glass, so it's best to remove this sort of stuff, because then when we come to applying our glass coatings, it will bond better. But now the claying's complete, we can start with the polishing. So the paintwork on this one, it was a little bit rough. It had definitely been repainted in its entirety in the past, so we ended up using quite a heavy cutting combination of a blue Roots wool pad with Cartec 3000. But this did bring it up very nicely and was removing a nice amount of defects as shown in this clip here. Now that we've started on the polish on the front end, we want to just tackle the headlights. It can be a little bit of a messy job and we don't want this to get in the way of the polishing on the bumper. So we start off with 1000 grit wet and work our way up to 2500. So there is the headlight sanded. If we go over to the other side, we can see how it looks when it's polished. Much better. A little bit more work to do on the polishing there, but you can see it's a night and day difference. Now, one of our jobs to do is remove these badges because they were a little bit flaky and corroded. So we heat up the badge and this one just pulls off as it's been stuck on before. The rear badge is a bit of a different story. We've heated this up to make it a bit more malleable, but as you can see, it kind of snapped on the pins when it came out, but it's not the end of the world, we've got a replacement to go in. Now we can get on with some more polishing. What a beautiful face. You can see the difference in the paintwork already. It's starting to shine differently to how it was before. It's removed so many of the defects and really flattened the paintwork out and made the half decent respray they'd done look a lot better. So it's time to finish off with the polishing and then we can start looking at dealing with some of the other bits that we've got to do on the car. The Hybrid Nano, the Roots polisher, coming into handy for those fiddly, tricky areas. And finally a little stone chip, just to be touched in. Then just to reassemble the brakes, so simply it's just the exact process for taking them off reversed. Just being a little bit more careful not to scratch the fresh paint that you've just put on. So first on goes the carrier, then the pads slot into the caliper, which is then pushed on to the carrier, 2 7mm Allen heads in the back, and in one swift motion fitting the brake pad retaining clip. Looking so much better. It's definitely worth dismantling the calipers to do this, because it just means you get zero overspray on the pads or any other components on the brakes, and just makes a much cleaner job. So the final part of the polishing is the rear lights. Just using a medium cut compound and a foam finishing pad brings these up beautifully. So now on to the next stage in preparation for coatings, which is Nano-Priming. So essentially this is just a cleansing polish that we apply to the whole car with a finishing pad, which prepares the surface perfectly for Ceramic Pro coatings. So now the Nano-Priming is complete, we can refit the new badges. So we've got some genuine BMW ones, front and back, which just pop into place, and then the protective film's removed. And one bit which is always super satisfying to do on cars like these is giving the underbody a good clean. So we're going to use a whole host of different products, including tar and glue removers, citrus cleaners, brushes and steam cleaners, to get through the dirt on these arches and suspension components and get them looking as good as possible. As you can see, it's a night and day difference, and once dressed with NLD dress, it really makes the plastics that have been weathered start to pop again. NLD dress is one of my favourite engine bay dressings also, so we spray this liberally over the whole engine bay and shut the bonnet, and that is it dressed. Once that's complete, these exhausts are dying for a polish, so using Mother's aluminium polish and a bit of steel wool, we polish these up. So once all the dirty work is complete, we can start with the coatings. So we use a microfiber applicator to apply a single layer of 9H to the paintwork, which is then just removed with a microfiber cloth. So while the 9H coating is curing, we can apply glass coatings to all of the glass on the vehicle. And the next step while we're waiting for 9H to cure before we can apply top coat is cleaning up the interior. So we give the leather a very good clean using the Colour Lock range of leather cleaners and brushes. So all the seats, the door cards and any other leather parts of the car. And then the final thing on the interior is just cleaning up all of the cubbyhole mats. So we remove these from the car and use NLD interior with a brush and just wipe them clean. As soon as they're dry, they're refitted. And now that it's all back together, that interior is looking damn fine. So the final finishing touches, we've got some tyre dressings to go on. Although we had an issue with the wheel refurbs, we'll be dressing the tyres anyway, just so we can get some nice outro shots for you guys. So the car's brought off the axle stands, back onto the floor, and then we can apply top coat. If you haven't seen how we do this, we spray it onto the car and then wipe straight off, but you can see more of how we do that in previous videos. Ceramic Pro top coat is the hydrophobic layer, so 9H gives you the protection and top coat gives you the hydrophobic and water repellent properties. So now that's top coat applied, that marks the end of the detail. So let's hand you back to Chris, our roaming detailer. Thanks, Chris. So that marks the end of the detail on this BMW Z4. We have had a slight delay on the wheels, so they've come back so we can move the car into the other garage and then go off for refurb again. Now, if you guys aren't subscribed, please do consider doing so. And also like the video if you can, it really helps us get seen across the YouTube platform. Also, just let me know how you guys feel about this new video format where obviously I'm talking over what we're doing. while it's being done on the car. I feel like it's a little bit more digestible. It can make the video shorter and compact more information into that shorter space of time for you guys. So let me know how you guys feel about it, or if you prefer the traditional vlog style video. So let me know in the comment section below which you prefer. But yeah, I shall sign out here. We shall catch you next week, Sunday at 6 PM. Thank you very much for watching.